What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Martian and Ozzy podcast. I am the Martian, joined by my co-host, as always, Ozzy. And this week, we're going to be talking about the amazing UFC 280 card going down this weekend from Abu Dhabi. 2 title fights, 6 fights that could honestly be a headliner on a fight night or something like that, or just a headliner on a pay-per-view. This is seriously one of the best cards in recent memory, and I cannot wait for a Saturday morning, actually, on the East Coast time for these fights to start. Ozzy, how we doing this week, my man?
Fantastic. New York just keeps on rolling. My Yankees got it done yesterday. We're gonna roll on to the Funk Master. Hopefully keeping his belt as well in the co-main event. And yeah, obviously this is the event a lot of people have been, anticipating. You got, pound for pound guys, it's the backups. You got Belal versus Sean Brady on the prelims. You got Caio, Brazilian Chad Bohayo on the prelims. Just a stacked card up and down, the O'Malley versus Yan, amazing fight. So very excited to get, through it. Obviously, like you mentioned, the early start time. So, I like that as well. And yeah, a lot of research and effort definitely has gone into, looking at this card top to bottom.
Yeah, and I'm seeing like a lot of like bettable lines as well. I mean, sometimes when we go to Abu Dhabi or these Russian cars, there's a lot of, big favorites that you can't really bet. Only one big, massive favorite in Mokaev minus 1200, Rosa at minus 300. But other than that, pretty much every fight in the minus 200 range or shorter. So a lot of fights to bet on. I'm seeing value on underdogs and favorites throughout the card. But before we just get into this card real quick, quick recap of last week. Bad week for me, minus 2.53 units. Only one bet won. That was Tyra money line, and I feel fine about Sam Hughes. I think that was a fine bet, but then the other 3 bets, not really good. The Mana Davis ITD, which was my best bet. It got close one moment. Overall, wasn't a good bet. Brito over, no chance. He destroyed that guy, and then the Jackson starts round two. Rodriguez destroyed that guy too. So bad week of bets for me. What about you?
Dropped just under a unit. My two most confident plays that I made, very, very early on, like right after the last card, Tyra and Dusko came through. Obviously, that Dusko one was a little sweaty, but I mean, he just stayed in positions that he just wasn't going to get finished by Jordan Wright on the ground. I didn't think. Obviously, he got bottom mounted, and then Tyra, did his thing, look really good. I did have a little sprinkle on the submission line. And then I was with you on Sam Hughes. I think that's a good bet. I make that, more often than not. It's plus 150. And then obviously Misha got got his lights put out. So, just under a unit loss there. Probably should have maybe upped the ante a little bit on a few of the favorites that I liked. But yeah, it was all right, card. I think with some live betting, I was, slightly ahead. Um but yeah, that was like an appetizer card. It wasn't, it wasn't anything special there.
Yeah, pretty forgettable card. I mean, Tyra is legit. I can't wait to see him in the future. Maximov shit the bed. A sun's out with the vet lesson. It was a
Cub
decent card.
Swanson, that's the one. I knew Cub Swanson was gonna get fucking sparked. Like as I was
Yeah,
looking at that more, I'm like, man, I that's one that I bet. I ended up betting late. Martinez at like minus 205. I was like, he's gonna knock this dude Cub out. And you could see as soon as he was landing those kicks on Cub, Cub didn't want to really be in there anymore. So that was one that I wish I would have maybe thrown in there as well. But okay, card. The
yeah,
fights weren't that bad.
yeah. That was a sad fight to watch Cub get destroyed like that. But enough said about last week. Let's get into these fights. 13 fights, and we're starting things off in the women's bantamweight division. Carol Rosa taking on Lena Landsberg. Rosa minus 335. Landsberg plus 275. Rosa, throws a lot of strikes. She can hit takedowns as well. I mean, I think she's got all the abilities to win this fight here. I feel like sometimes people are talking about, oh, she can possibly finish a woman, but she just never seems to actually do it. And I don't think she probably will here. I think it's probably going to be a decision. Landsberg is, old enough and, experienced enough to probably just hang around and make it somewhat close to make it to a decision. But I don't see her having much upside to actually win these rounds in this fight. And it's probably going to be a fight that you don't have to think too hard about, and it's probably just going to be Rosa decision. So honestly, her line at minus 115 for decision isn't bad, but no real assertive thoughts here from me. What about you?
Yeah, I think that decision line is okay. I wouldn't lay this chalk on the money line just because Landsberg's just so tough. I think it's hard to finish her, and she's she's competent in a few of the areas. Unless Rosa is really like shooting a lot of takedowns, which I don't think is gonna happen. I think this should probably go to decision. But honestly, man, earlier in the week I was looking at Landsberg, just thinking, like that fight against Panny was I would say a little bit closer than people really gave credit for. Like, yeah, Panny was able to land a little bit more of the, clearer strikes, but Landsberg's tough in there. If you're in the clinch with her, she's nasty. She looks like I mentioned before, she looks like she's like a warden of a jail. She's down to get bloody in there. She throws a lot of, clinch strikes as well. But just on the outside, she doesn't pump enough volume out for her to reliably win rounds. So, if I were to play her, I would probably play her to win by a like decision, which is I mean, it's not that great of a price, so it's probably gonna just have to be a pass. But yeah, I wouldn't lay that chalk on Carol Rosa because she's just like a little bit we at like the age difference thing in women's MMA. I don't give as much credence to as men just because the baseline of athleticism is like low enough that like it really doesn't deteriorate as much, I feel. And Landsberg, I don't know, she's just kind of crazy, so she's like an anomaly overall. So just a pass fight for me. But I wouldn't be comfortable with that chalk price on a girl like Rosa.
Yeah, I think the one or two takedowns could pretty much just win her these rounds in this fight.
I agree.
Because Landsberg is so bad on bottom, and Rosa has exploited that before with her Jocelyn Edwards fight. But enough about that one. Moving on to the next fight in the flyweight division, Muhammad-Mokaev taking on Malcolm Gordon. Kind of surprised this fight's this low on the card. Mokaev minus 1,200, Gordon plus 800. So it seems like a matter of how is Mokaev going to win here. I mean, I doubt you're giving much of a chance to Gordon. So how do you think Mokaev gets it done?
I think this fight finishes in the first 2 rounds. The decision I'm trying to make is, do I play the under at like minus 106 right now on FanDuel, or do I try to mix like round one, round two Mokaev to potentially have maybe like a little bit of a better price, or get both rounds of equity of him finishing. Just I think that Malcolm Gordon, if he could go first, if he could have like if he can go for takedowns first or throw strikes first, whatever it may be. I think he could have success overall. Like I mean, I don't mean in this fight, just overall. But once you start putting him on the back foot or having him have to catch up to transitions, which I do think will happen here, I think that Makayev is going to be able to just overwhelm him. I would probably say is probably going to come with strikes. Firstly, maybe he strikes with him a little bit and then just latches onto a submission. Because I think Malcolm Gordon will try to shoot on him. If he does get stunned on the feet, so I'd probably lean towards like I said, at early finish. The knockout price is not bad. You could almost get 3 to 1, whereas the submission price is much lower. But I think it is lower because they know that Malcolm Gordon will look to grapple if he is stunned. And I think Mokaev will be more than happy to there be go for guillotine or pull him in and try to circle to his back or something like that. But I think this finishes early, and I will be playing some kind of early prop, whether it be under or round one, round two for Mokaev.
Yeah, it's tough to find a prop that you really like here. Mokai 1 or 2 is minus 130. That's actually pretty good on FanDuel because the ITD is, I mean, minus 230, 240 on some books. It's not an easy bet to make because, you have to finish someone at, over a 67% chance for it to look value. But I think it's inevitably going to hit here. I mean, I just think that Gordon is going to be in danger on the feet because his chin's so bad. And then on the ground, it's just going to be a complete wipeout from Mokaev. Gordon's takedown defense is terrible. He's terrible positionally. And just watch the Amir Albazi fight, man. Takes him down, passes his guard, mounts him. Eventually lost the mount, but then got that triangle. So I just think Mokaev's going to be attacking from all angles here and is probably going to get that sub. And with it, minus 230 for ITD, I think you're probably better off taking that Mokaev 1-2, or maybe taking fight doesn't start round 3 at this point because that line is just getting a little out of control. So, and generally, if the fight somehow gets to round 3, it's probably going to be Gordon surviving to the decision at that point. So if a finish is happening, it's probably early here. And enough about that one. Middleweight division next, Armen Petrosyan taking on AJ Dobson. Petrosyan is the favorite, minus 191. AJ Dobson plus 166 in the comeback. I think this line is looking about accurate, maybe even some value here on Armin. Dobson just doesn't look like a good fighter at all to me. I will say I did see a slight improvement from his contender series fight to the Malkoun fight. The contender series he was just really wild and crazy and swinging and missing a lot. His feet work was all over the place. And he did kind of calm down a little bit and try to strike and outstrike Malkoun. He did successfully for about 5 minutes, and then in just like the 7th minute of the fight, you see him a takedown lands for Malkoun, and Dobson, all the fight just leaves him, and he is completely gassed and out of the fight at that moment. So, pretty good sign that the guy's got bad cardio. And Petrosyan is just I'd say the much better striker of the two. I mean, he's going to be keeping his distance. He's going to be kicking a lot. He's going to be using those straight punches. And Armin's got really good cardio. He can throw output for the full 15 minutes. He's pretty durable as well. So I mean, I think Dobson's going to have to catch him and knock him out here for him to win. I don't see how Dobson is going to win the fight outside of that. You could say that Dobson might wrestle here. He did apparently wrestle in one of his fights, the fight that he went to the decision in a few years ago. But Petrosyan isn't like that terrible of a grappler where I think AJ Dobson is going to be able to take him down. I think maybe he will have some brief success, but pretty much all of Armin's fights or him getting, controlled or taken down for a minute or two, and then he separates and then he blasts the guy and knocks him out. So Armin is, I'd say, very likely to win here. I think minus 190. It's not an easy a chalk bet to make because Armin only has 2 fights in the UFC, but I do think he has good potential to cover this price tag and win this fight here. So it's Armin or pass for me.
This fight, I was thinking about playing Armin. I need to do a little bit more, like a little bit more, just a refresh and kind of just check in on where what Armin's been doing training wise. But I'm kind of trying to lean towards this going over 1.5, just because like Armin, a lot of his knockouts, a lot of times he has success has been when the other guys like slow down a little bit, take control of the pace, and stuff like that. And while Dobson did come out rabies in that round one of the contender fight, I think that they know that I think if they're just striking on the outside, AJ does have a reach advantage here. So, I think if Armin is just throwing out those kicks, which is his primary weapon, maybe AJ is able to, kind of counter that with his hands a little bit more than people expect. And then maybe even looking to get into the clinch and go for takedowns. But I potentially see this fight being a bit slower paced at certain points. Armin is okay with kind of like looking for his opening, circling around, moving his feet, and then firing off 1 or 2 strikes at a time. And I think AJ himself is pretty durable as well. I think we'd have to watch for like some of those body kicks. You never know, if you get hit with one of those big body kicks by a guy like Armin, if that folds you over. But being at a pick'em price for an over here, where I don't really think that AJ is going to be able to land, at will on Armin, just because like how well Armin moves in there, and he does have the big cage down to work with, which his 3 other fights in the UFC so far have all been in that small congested cage. So I think he's gonna be looking to get some cage time in, wear AJ out, throw those kicks. So I'm looking at that pick 'em price. I'll decide a little bit later on this week, but that's the only prop or bet that I'm really looking at too much in this fight.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you look at the knockout props, I just think they're kind of overvaluing the KO here for both guys potentially. I mean, Dobson is probably his only way to win, but the Armin KO price at what plus 120? That's no good. You might as well just take money line at that point, and maybe
But
even
yeah, I feel
go
that
ahead.
price is like very much like late, put in late, like with late equity in it. Like if I was playing Armin, I'm thinking that he's gonna get a finish. I would try to play some of those later props, just because he's not really a thumper. Like he doesn't hit crazy hard, so I think he's like more accumulation guy. Like even in that dude that gassed in the contender fight that he had, like he eventually he put him out cold. Don't get me wrong, but it was like a flurry of strikes. And AJ, like, if you coming in on him, I think that he's okay. Like, he's good with like clinching up and, he's pretty strong guy as well. So I don't think he's just gonna get obliterated with like one strike.
Yeah, and then the one last point I was going to make is that Armin decision line. You can get it at plus 330. That's not bad. Or no, plus 400 on DraftKings. I mean, if this somehow gets to decision, I think it's pretty going to be favorable for Petrosyan at that point. So that's not a bad line. We're moving on next. Welterweight division. Abu Bakr Nurmagomedov taking on Oezdemir-Krylov. You hear that pronunciation, Ozzy? That's why I get paid the big bucks. I mean, just absolutely nailing everything, every syllable. Um, Welterweight fight here. Abu Bakr minus 163, Gaji plus 143. What are you thinking here?
This is a fight that I've been wanting to play Abu a lot this whole like the whole time because I knew that Omar-Gadzhiev was a fraud, and I knew that shit from his contender fight. And I cashed big on Kaio at plus money against this guy, but he's just a weird dude. Like I want to see at 170 what he's looking like. First of all, he is a 93 kid, which I do value, but he just looks like a fraud 93 kid to me. And like the issue is I think there's some variance in this fight potentially because I don't know how much Abu likes fighting, to be honest with you. Like I think they forced this guy to fight. If you look at some of his fights, like it's been a little picky, choosy matchups, in my opinion, overall for the guy. Now that his uncle's no longer, this might be his last fight in the UFC. So I don't kind of want to play chalk on the guy. But I think that he's better than Omar Gadzhiev. And I think if they're on the feet, he's got better like range control, and he's like more okay with like a fight playing out on the feet. Whereas Gadzhiev, he's just like swinging out of his shoes. Like I think he rushes some of the grappling a lot of times and leaves opportunity to be counter grappled. I mean, you saw when he took down Kaio, he like immediately got rolled over like a white belt. Um, so I'm leaning the Abu Bakr price. It's coming in a little bit. So that makes me think that, maybe some people have honed in on this guy maybe potentially looking a little bit better at 170, having something to prove. He's going against the Nurmagomedov. Like if it was me, that would definitely be something that would motivate me to show up well. But I think I'm gonna just pass in the fight overall. Maybe look to live bet it. I think it potentially could be a close fight. I think this is a fight where it could potentially be like 1-1 going into the third round. Two Russians, a little bit competitive, striking, some clinching and stuff like that. But I kind of like the fight also to go the distance potentially because I don't think Abu has a lot of power. I don't think he has great grappling. I don't think he'll chase the finish when he is grappling in terms of submissions. Like I think if he gets a dominant position, he's more likely just to hold and kill the clock. And I don't think it's gonna be going to the ground like right away in any of the rounds. I think there will be a fight for the takedown. So I'm gonna look at this over a little bit more and lean that way, but I would pick Abu probably to pick up the win. Um but I'm intrigued in this fight. I'm intrigued. So this is the first of Khabib's guys I think stepping in the cage, right? Of the night. So I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with pretty much everything there. I mean, Abu, definitely doesn't seem like he's fully into fighting. Long layoffs. Only, I think this is going to be his what third fight in 4 years or something like that. So that doesn't make it an easy spot to lay the chalk on, but I do think he has much more potential to cover his price tag here. Although maybe we're overreacting a little bit to Gadji's last fight because he just looks so horrible in that fight. But I feel like the market is kind of still respecting him a bit with this pricing. Like you said, people seem to be betting him, and the Nurmagomedov name not getting a huge fight favors Abu here. Really in all areas. I mean, I think he's definitely going to be the better striker of the two. Abu's striking is actually really good. It's better than you'd expect from a Dagestan guy. He just stays a lot more planted on his feet, and he's got good boxing, a nice jab. Beat up Jared Gooden really badly on the feet, and with Gachi, showing that he can be put on bottom and stuck on bottom versus Kaio, I think Abu might be able to replicate that as well. Although Abu doesn't seem too inclined to actually wrestle urgently in most of his fights, he kind of wants to strike. So um, I think the Gadji moving down to 170 is, probably a good move. The guy is a smaller 185er, but he also has never gone down to 170 in his entire career. So this will be his first, huge weight cut down to that. That could have an effect on him. And Abu just locked in training with all the Dagestani guys. Islam, Zubaria, Bilal, all in camp. All guys kind of around his size that are good training partners as well. So I think Abu will win the fight. And a line that you mentioned that I hadn't really considered is GTD minus 165. I mean, that puts the fight ending inside the distance at like 38%, right? How does this fight end ITD 38% of the time? I don't know. I don't even know what the most common finish here is. So that's a good line. I'm gonna bet that as well. Um,
Gaji does not have good submission grappling. Like this guy, like he'll go for wrestling, but like he's not submitting Abu. Like if he submits Abu, Khabib needs to change this guy's fucking last name. Like that is no good. So yeah, I like that
yeah.
goes to this, but I'm gonna look more at Abu because if the line comes into like minus 150, I might have to do it. Well, I would definitely not bet on Omargadzhiev. I'm
Yeah, I
not
mean,
doing
I think even at this price, 163, 65. I mean, I think that could be good as well. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I just struggle to see many advantages for Omar Gadjiev here. But the only thing, like I said, we're uh, overreacting to how shit he looked in this last fight. So next
Yeah,
fight is going
Kyle,
to be
way
in
better
the
grappler, great grappler, much bigger. So yeah, for sure.
yeah, and then also like you said, like he took him down and it was just an instant reversal. Then round two, I think he just like fell over and was on bottom. And just like the fight just went as poorly as it possibly could go for him. So he has to look better here. He can't look that bad again. So next fight is in featherweight division. Zubaira Tukhugov taking on Lucas Almeida. The odds for this one have Zubaira as the favorite minus 158. Almeida coming back as the dog plus 138. I think this line is pretty accurate. I do favor Zubaira in round one. The guy is a solid fighter when he's fresh, but the story of his career is his cardio. The guy just cannot seem to get that cardio on point. And I'm not really sure it's ever going to get, on point at this point because it's just been a problem for so long of his career. I mean, he's been gassing out in fights since like 2015, 2016. And you saw in the Hamos fight, unanimously losing round three there again. Uh, the Leron Murphy fight, he slowed down late, and it just seems like this guy cannot go a hard 15 minutes. So I think you got to favor Almeida in the second half of the fight, especially him coming off that knockout round three over Trezano. Good win, good performance there. And I think he might have been dropping down to 145 in that fight. I think he was, and his cardio looked good, going the full 15. And I do think Almeida probably will get taken down here. Maybe even has some issues with Zubaira on the feet because Zubaira is quick. He's got some decent boxing on the feet early on. So I think Zubaira will win the first round, maybe first round and a half. And you got to look for that Almeida live bet here. If he's a 250 3-1 dog after round one, I would consider entering in on him live. And just generally that Almeida KO line is 7-1, Almeida KO 2-3. I think those odds are pretty good at like 16 1 and 22-1 for Almeida. So some props to be betting here. I think it is a props or live bet or pass situation. Just not interested on laying that chalk on Zubaira with those cardio issues. Although, Zubaira by decision plus 165, not a bad way to play him because he does have that kind of lay and pray style. So, not no super strong thoughts on this one for me. What about you?
Yeah, I like this fight. I've been looking at this fight a lot. Tuhugov, I think this is a kind of a similar fight to the Ricardo Ramos fight, but the thing is, like, obviously Ramos has a lot more UFC experience, but I like some of the things that Almeida brings a bit more than Ramos does in the aspect of I like his hands better. Boxing wise, I think he could fight off the back foot a bit better. And Tuhugov is pretty aggressive early on. He puts the guys on the back foot. He's pushing a lot of aggression and a lot of pace on Ricardo Ramos in that first round. But his strike selection, like his the one what he uses is very kind of like meat and potatoes. Like he's jab cross, jab cross. Like he doesn't throw too much other than that. He is quick. He has like a quick little step in left hook. But I don't know. Like I don't know how well that's gonna go for him on a guy here who I think is pretty good on the counter, is ready at all times, to throw. I mean, you saw that knockdown at the end against Michael Trezano. This guy, he read the cross coming in really well, and he throws a left hook behind it to drop him. And Tukhugov does kind of like stay there a little bit, after he's throwing that right cross. So I think there's volatility and variance in this fight. I think this has a potential to be fight of the night as well, just because I think there's going to be a lot of exchanges here, and I'm liking the Almeida side a little bit. I want a little bit bigger of a price. I feel that most people are on the Tukhugov side of things because they think that he can, maybe outstrike Almeida as well as out wrestle him. But I like some of the stuff that I see with Almeida's grappling. He's shown me in his last two fights, overcoming some adversity overall. And being in two tough fights there. He's got a black belt in jiu-jitsu on the ground. I think he used some good grappling in his last two fights, especially against Trezano. I like some of the tendencies and things that he went for in some of them. So I'm looking at the Almeida side. I think that he could potentially stay in this fight on the feet. He's quick himself, and he's good at kind of like filling in the gaps in time where he's throwing the leg kick, inside leg kick, throwing body kicks. He goes to the body well with his hands as well. So if he could put Tuhugov on the back foot a little bit early on, maybe make him expend a little bit more energy than he planned. I think he could potentially pull away in this fight later on. So I'm gonna sit on this a bit more and see where the line goes. But I'm liking some of the things that I see out of Almeida. I think this guy's gonna win UFC fights, and it might start this weekend. So I'll pick the Almeida side, and I'll probably have a little bit of a money line play on him, and maybe something on the KO line as well.
Yeah, and then just 2 points about that, Zubaira has fought in these, Abu Dhabi type of, conditions a few times, and he's not getting favorable judging in these, he's not getting like a hometown decision or anything like that because the Leroy Murphy fight and the Dawadu fight, he both, kind of the judges were kind of favoring the other fighters in those fights and not really giving him any favoritism. And then the last point I'll say though is, Almeida in retrospect, that loss to Zellhuber, definitely not a good look with how Zellhuber looked in this last fight. But I mean, I think Zellhuber just looked like a completely different fighter in that fight as opposed to what we saw versus that fella, what's like a Trey Ogden recently. So that'll move us along to light heavyweight division. Volkan Oezdemir-Krylov. Krylov's the favorite here, -175. Volkan Oezdemir +150. Ozzy, I know you're excited for this one. Let's hear some thoughts on it.
It's another fight that I like. I'm surprised actually these guys hadn't fought up until here. Krylov looked good in his last fight, even though Alex is a little bit washed. I mean, the guy just came out like a bat out of hell. Looking for any and every opportunity to find that chin, and put strikes on Gustafsson. But I feel like since this guy's coming back to UFC, he just looks way better. Like I think he's improving. Still, this guy's a big light heavyweight. He's 6'3", big reach on him. And he's honestly low key a triple threat. He can strike on the outside. He's got good kicks and punches. He's dangerous in the clinch, and then he could wrestle too. And once he does get on top, he'll keep you down. He'll throw some good ground and pound. He did get caught by Paul Craig, but no shame in that. And I just feel overall, Volkan's a little washed to me, and I think that he can't really like. He just looks slow against Paul Craig. He didn't look like he really wanted to pull the trigger. I don't know why. Like at a certain point, a lot of the danger from Paul Craig went a bit out the window in terms of like when they're on the feet. You know what I mean? Like he just did not look like he was ready to pull the trigger. Like his reflexes just looked a little slow to me. I don't know. Look strange to me, especially off that Ankalaev fight where I think it was like a similar case there where he had some opportunities, but then he wasn't taking them. And I think it's happened to him a bunch of times. Like the guy, the only time he really looked good is against like Latifi. Like I just don't like anything I've seen from him out of any of these fights. And if you even go back to like his past fights, like he won, these quick fights against Jimmy Manuwa and Misha Cirkunov. Like are those really good wins in retrospect? So I think Nikita Krylov is the side in this fight. He has been a little bit unreliable, But I think that's in the past. I think this guy, he's 30 years old, still, or he just turned 30, or I think he just turned 30. So I think he at the time in the timeline of actual like light heavyweights, I think he's still on the up, on the up and up. And I don't think Volkan is the same anymore. So, you know, usually Krylov's biggest issue has been getting grappled, like staying in the grappling too long. But I just obviously Volkan does not offer really much anything there in terms of offensive grappling, in my opinion. Um, and I don't think that he's knocking out Nikita Krylov. So I like Krylov in this fight. I think that he could potentially finish what's his name of Volkan as well. So I like that almost 4-to-1 price for a knockout here for Krylov, because even if he takes Volkan down, I think Volkan's bad enough off his back that he could potentially be in a bad position there to get finished with strikes as well. So I'm gonna be on the Krylov side. I bet a little bit at minus 170. I think he's good up until like 190 ish. It's not. I'm not saying this is like a huge edge here, but I think he's definitely the side here, and I'm pretty sure he's gonna win this fight.
Yeah, I'm in agreement there. I think that Krylov should be the favorite to win, and this price is pretty good, honestly. And I could really see Krylov winning in all three ways, and the prices kind of reflect that. KO 390, sub 360, decision 350. They're all kind of priced right around the same way because Krylov is truly, that multifaceted type of fighter where he could win all three ways. I think he's got the better athleticism and speed at this point. Is probably going to be throwing more strikes and got the more reliable cardio, so that should favor him if it goes to the decision. And Volkan just looks slow against Craig. I mean, this guy probably is past his prime. Like you were saying, some of his early wins, those quick knockouts over Manawa, he probably just high rolled his entire career off of a few bonk wins like that. And he's been hanging around off of those wins ever since. Although in retrospect, is Ira Latifi. I mean, he beat the brakes off of Latifi and made it look pretty easy there. So um, I think Krylov can win in all three ways. I'm kind of leaning decision, honestly. I think Volkan might be just tough enough to kind of hang around, and he seems like the guy. Once he's losing, like say he's on bottom at one point in this fight, I don't see him really selling out to try to get back up to his feet. I could kind of see him laying on his back and kind of accepting bottom position and waiting to see the end of the rounds and waiting to see that decision. So I don't really have a take on which method Krylov is going to win. I'm leaning decision, but I'm not going to be betting it. I think honestly, just money line is the way to stick with Krylov. I think if this line keeps coming in anymore, it'll be an easy spot. But Ozzy said it. Anything under 190, I think is good. Anything under 2-to-1, I think you could even go as high as 225, 250 here for Krylov. I favor him in this fight, and I think the only way he's going to lose is knockout. Ozzy said he does out, but I think that's the way he has to win. I think that any other I don't Oezdemir submitting him, it seems, virtually impossible, and I just don't see this fight going his way if it goes to the scorecards. I just think the activity and the athleticism of Krylov is going to be winning these rounds and winning him the fight ultimately. So in Ukraine, we trust, and he will probably get it done. Two prelims left. 185 division, middleweight division. Mahmoud Muradov taking on Kyle Borralho. Really good fight here. Borralho minus 191, Muradov plus 166. So I mean, really compelling matchup here. You got Muradov, who hasn't fought in a while after taking his first loss in a long time to GM3. Kind of got obliterated in that fight. Although I think rewatching that fight earlier today, there are maybe one or two asterisks to mention about that fight because Muradov in his first three UFC fights, DeCurico and Sanchez and that other guy he beat up, he he took her was throwing like single shots, jab, 1-2. He wasn't using a lot of energy. He wasn't throwing a lot of strikes, and it seemed like he was kind of conserving his gas tank for those later rounds. And he did score some round three knockouts in those fights. But the GM3 fight was the first time he really like came forward and tried to put some pressure on his opponent from the jump. And I don't know if he could really keep that pace because. Uh, he did slow down in that fight, but he also did get eye poked once. He did get kicked in the nuts once, and GM3 was able to take that time to recover and then just get right on Muradov after that. Was hurting him with some strikes, and then eventually took him down and choked him out rather easily there in that second round. But The reason why this matchup I think is difficult to really predict is because Muradov, I don't think we've ever seen him on his back early in the fight without being hurt. Like we've never seen him actually get cleanly taken down early on and have to see his way work. We have to see how he works his way back up to the feet. I don't think we've ever seen that, and that's what you really want to see because Ohio is very likely going to take him down. It's just a matter of can Muradov work his way back up to the feet? Can he stay safe enough to avoid that submission? And it's going to be a tall task because Ohio is a really good control grappler and he's got good wrestling, good timing on his wrestling. I was on Petrosyan against Ohio, and Kyle just timed his takedown so well in that fight and just took the win right out of Petrosyan's sails just right away in that fight by just taking him down a minute in and just suffocating him for 4 minutes. And the fight was pretty much over after that. Um, but the striking is going to be real interesting here. I think Muradov has the edge on the feet, although the southpaw striking of Kyle could give Muradov some advantages. And Muradov's a good athlete, man. He's light on his feet, but I think that's a bit of a detriment here because he has that light on his feet style, that in and out striking style, and I think that's just going to allow Kyle to kind of get a rhythm of his movement and then time that good double leg takedown and get Muradov down and put him flat on the mat. And after that, I think it should be pretty one here. So I'm leaning Kaio or pass at this price. I think it's just like one takedown for Kaio, and he could be a minus 600 favorite in the live lines, while Murdov's going to need a lot of things to go right for him to win this fight. So it's a compelling matchup. I'm interested to see how this one goes, but I'm thinking it's going to be Bohio here. Bohio sub at 462. Not bad for. I think that the range of how bad of a grappler Muradov here is pretty big. He could be not as bad as we thought from the GM3 fight, or he could be, very bad and get submitted here easily. So 460 is pretty good on FanDuel for Ohio sub.
Cool fight here. We got Brazilian Chad. He's been looking good. A surprise to me when he popped up in Tamayev and Darren Till's, vlogs and shit like that. I really didn't see that coming. But apparently he went over to Sweden. He's been training there a lot. So obviously he's been working on his wrestling. I would assume he's working on that conditioning, right? Even Chimaev's program even could get Darren Till's fat ass in shape. So I can only imagine what it could do to a stud like Kyle Bahayo. And I think I'm intrigued by this fight and his line overall. It is coming down a little bit now. And Murdov, like you said, he does have some skills. He's like a classically trained boxer, moves around pretty well on the feet. And he does throw some nice shots in there. He's got a quick jab. He comes forward with that cross and that left hook behind it very often. But I mean, just some of the counter grappling or like grappling in terms of where you're trying to get it, keep it in like a neutral position, just has not looked good to me overall. And I think that Kyle, I think I underrated his grappling a little bit off of what I saw like in that Jeffrey fight and some of those other fights, beforehand. But the guy's an A+ grappler. Let's not be mistaken. I've seen some footage of him grappling with some really really high level guys and doing very very well, holding his own and more than that. So I think this guy might be the new age Damian Maya, honestly, with like some more double leg takedowns. He times his takedowns pretty well. He hit those double legs. He's got some judo as well. So I think that he's in a and the thing with Murdov is he moves back a lot when he's sometimes when you're throwing strikes at him. He's not a guy where he kind of like sits and looks to counter that much. His striking comes more when he's coming forward. You saw that a little bit with the Sanchez fight when in the GM3 fight when he's kind of like winging shots. But his defense is actually not that great. Like he gets hit on the button, quite a bit, especially with straight shots. So I'm thinking Kyle's gonna get some respect with the hands, eventually take this guy down. And then when he does take guys down, he's really good at elevating the legs, keeping the hips flat on the mat, and flanking you, and that's why he gets to the back often and a lot. When you're if you shelf those legs, it's just really hard for these guys to get up. And then as they try to do that, or as they try to recover, he's coming off to the side and he's circling around. And once he's there, I think he's really really strong in those positions. So I like Kyle in this fight. The line's coming in more and more. I know some sharp guys that did take some of that Muradov lines at like plus like 210 or whatever it was, 215. But I like Kyle here. I think I'm gonna play him as well. Just because I just think on the feet he's gonna be able to neutralize some of the big strikes that Muradov throws. And I do not think that Muradov is going to be able to escape some of these takedowns that are going to come his way, whether that be him, being against the fence and getting taken down over there, or it's him getting taken down and double legged, in the open space. So I got Kyle here. I think I'm going to lay that chalk money line. I think he's good juice compared to the other guys, even though Muradov is a good fighter. I think the margins for Kyle are much bigger here. And I think he's going to get a dominant win.
Who was that grappler you were talking about that you saw Kyle going with, or who you were really
He
impressed
was
with?
he was grappling with this guy named Muhammad Ali, not the dead one, R.I.P. R.I.P. Cassius, but he used to train with Lord Irvin, black belt world champion, multiple time Abu Dhabi, competitor. And they were training when ADCC was in town a few weeks back, like a month ago. It was like a closed training session. Was like Damian Maya was there, Mika Galvao, all those guys. And Kyle basically out grappled the guy. And this guy is like 240 pounds of like pure muscle.
Hmm, it's a good sign. Um, but I feel like Muradov might be continuing to get action here. It seems like the market is kind of liking Muradov more than the Kyle side. So maybe just wait to see where that price goes.
Oh, and the
Um,
over 1.5 was crazy price. I was like minus one. I got a little minus 165. That price is gone, but
yeah,
I
that is.
thought that,
Yeah,
yeah, just to hedge the side of maybe Muradov, his grappling is better, and he just gets body triangle. But I like Kyle here. I'll have a bigger play
yeah.
on Kyle than the over.
It moved, yeah. I would have bet that too if I could get it at, minus 170. Now it's 210. Not as easy of a play to make there, but it's still inevitably going to hit, I think. Um, that's going to take us to the last fight in the prelims. Arguably one of the best fights on the UFC prelims ever, honestly. Like, it reminds me of that time like Pedro Munoz versus Dominic Cruz was on the prelims. But we got honestly number one contender fight at welterweight, Bilal Muhammad taking on Sean Brady. Welterweight division here. Sean Brady minus 130, Bilal Muhammad plus 110. And it's going to be your turn to start this one off, Ozzy. Let's hear some thoughts.
Yeah, sick fight. I like both guys. I made, good money on both guys. Bilal is on a good run here. The Wonder Boy fight and the Luque fight especially, he looked good in those fights. But, he was the underdog. Don't get it twisted. He was a pretty sizable underdog in both. I really liked him in the Luque fight just because I thought that, he's going to be able to be okay on the feet enough. And then, grappling wise, like Luque he just can't grapple. Like he just no take down the fence. And then when he is on his back, like he doesn't offer anything from there. In this fight though, like it's a fight where like I just can't go against Sean Brady until I see someone beat him. A lot of people they'll bring up the Michael Chiesa fight where he did his striking did not look all great, but Chiesa, man, he's like a weird guy to fight. He's got those go-go gadget arms. First southpaw. I feel also that Sean Brady had fought at the time, and it's just a little bit difficult sometimes to get the range on those guys, land the same kind of punches that you usually can. But when they get in tight, man, this dude Brady's an absolute hammer on the ground, and in the clinch and with these takedowns. Like he's just really, really good. With his grappling, like I'm telling you, like these guys, like Brendan Allen's been over there, Randy Brown, Neil Magny. There's a reason these guys are going over there to train with Sean Brady. And I'll tell you from seeing, like hearing us, these guys all get dominated. Not like I don't want to slight anybody, but Sean Brady's really, really, beating these guys up in terms of their grappling. And the issue that I see here with Bilal is super well rounded, but the fact that he doesn't have a lot of power, I think, is gonna not deter Sean Brady from eventually just being able to walk him down, get him against the fence, get some double leg takedowns, pull him away, and take him down. And when he does go down, the thing with Bilal is, yeah, he's shown good balance, but some of the ways that he tries to get up is just gonna lead, I feel, to the same kind of series that you saw him catch on like Jake Matthews, where you've got like that it's very Khabib-esque, honestly. You got that single leg ride, you're coming over for the handcuff, right? The wrist trap on the backside, and you're just getting the guy flat and starting to hammer away on him. So most of the takes that I see from people are like leaning on the fact that they think that Brady's gonna get tired and Bilal's gonna start putting it on him, which could happen. Bilal, he's got great cardio. When he is on the front foot, he looks good, man. He's got a lot of pressure, but a lot of these guys, like, they don't have that much to offer, in terms of like coming back at him. And in this big cage, like, is he really gonna be able to walk a guy like Sean Brady down? Like, Sean Brady does have some power on the feet. I think, boxing wise, if these guys are just exchanging, I think that Brady can definitely hold his own. And I think he's just going to be able to control the pace of the fight more than a lot of the opponents that Bilal has had in the past. And I think that Bilal's grappling is actually weaker than people actually think in terms of defensively. On offense is good, but like Damian Maia takes him down early in their fight. And in that position that they kind of get in and Bilal gets back up, I feel like positions like that is Brady all day. Is Brady going to be able to, really, really enforce his will on Bilal? And it's just going to be a matter of, can Bilal get away a few times? And then when he is, in space, like, what is his game plan going to be? Is he going to be back on the front foot and being very aggressive? Is he going to kind of like wait and kind of like just try to jab and pick away at Brady? But the thing is, I feel like Brady's coming in with a good game plan. I think some of the strikes that he throws really leads well into his grappling. And I just think that he's gonna end up pulling away with this fight, starting to put some strikes on him. I got a little bit of Brady at -125 early on DraftKings. At anything under -135, I think I'm gonna add in a little bit of play. I'm not gonna make this a big bet because I respect both guys. I think Bilal has some good skills here, and I do think that he could potentially beat Brady because if Brady does slow down, like, I haven't really seen Brady too much on the defense with the grappling, and Bilal does have some legitimate grappling offense. You saw that in kind of like this Wonder Boy fight and those fights. So we'll see how it plays out. I think that Brady's going to be able to be on the offense a bit more early on, and get out to a lead over Bilal. But it's a fight that I'm, really intrigued by. I'm intrigued to see how Brady looks to counter Bilal when they are striking on the feet, because I do think that he has better striking to show than he has that than has taken place in the UFC overall. And I think Bilal is a little bit peaked here. And I think that the fear of Sean Brady's grappling, I think, is going to be a detriment to Bilal and like all his preparation here. I think he's been preparing defensive grappling a lot. And I don't know how much he's actually been working on him, attacking and, on the feet, especially with his boxing and stuff like that. So I'm on the Sean Brady side, and I think that he's going to take home this win.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I think Sean is the side here. I think he should probably be closer to 170, 190 here instead of 130, 140. So, there's some pretty significant value on his line where it's at now. I'm just seeing the Bilal fight when he fought Damian Maya. You see Damian Maya attempt single leg attempts. You see him get Bilal back to the cage. You see kind of put Bilal against the cage and keep him there for at least a few minutes or something like that. So I think that if Damian Maya at the age of 41, 42 is able to do that, real quick, Ozzy, can you just reset the mic? It's echoing a little bit. So if Damian Maya was able to do that at the age of 42, I think Sean Brady's going to be able to do it as well because I think the strength advantage here for Brady is just going to be really, really significant. I think he is much stronger than Bilal, and you're going to see it in those clinching and grappling positions. You're going to see Brady just being able to get the body lock and just pin Bilal against the fence, and likely be able to take him down as well. Um, Now, rewatching the Brady fight against Chiesa, it actually wasn't as bad of a look as I once remembered because, I kind of remembered Brady, getting his ass kicked in round three there, but he actually took Chiesa down and got a back take for, a few minutes of that round. He did get pieced up a little bit at the end and maybe at the beginning of the as well, but he still was able to get a takedown and a back take in a round where he, was struggling. So I think that Brady, the issues around Brady, his cardio and his striking are a little bit overblown after that last Chiesa fight. But I do recognize that that is the way that Brady is going to lose here, is that he's going to probably get tired and lose the later rounds. Um, but as he was saying something about Bilal's offensive grappling, I mean, Bilal shot like 15 takedowns on Diego Lima and he hit like one of them. So like his offensive grappling, um, I don't think it is that good, especially when it's the sole thing he's going after. So he's good at blending in his striking with his grappling, but when he's purely grappling and going for that takedown, I don't think his wrestling is that good. And I don't think he has really good drive through his takedowns once he gets in on that attempt. So he might get in on Brady's legs, but I don't think he's going to be finishing a takedown here. I mean, Brady would have to be pretty gassed for Bilal to actually get him down. And the striking is going to be, I do give an advantage to Bilal. Bilal just doesn't hurt people, guys. I think for a guy to beat Brady, I think it's going to have to be a guy with really good footwork who can avoid being stuck on the fence and who also can sting Brady with shots at distance to, hurt him and discourage him from getting close enough to shoot him. That's just not Bilal, man. The guy does not hit hard. And I just feel Bilal's chances at finishing this fight are extremely, extremely low. So if Bilal is going to win, it's going to have to be by decision, and I don't favor him to win round one, and so he's going to have to win round two and three. So that's why I think the price on Brady is good. Is I'm recognizing there's a path for him to lose, but I just think it's a lot less likely than the odds are indicating now. Brady at around 55%, I think is generous. I think it should be. Easily over 60% for Sean here. So I think Sean's going to keep the undefeated streak going. I think he's going to win by decision. It'll probably be 29-28 decision for Brady, winning the first two rounds, maybe dropping the last one. Um, but I like Sean here. And that's going to be the first on the main card. That's going to be in the women's flyweight division. Caitlin Chookagian taking on Yan-OMalley. The odds for this one, Yan-OMalley minus 205, Caitlin Chookagian plus 175. So Caitlin is Bay. Clearly, she's one of the greatest fighters on the women's roster, one of the hottest women on the UFC roster. And I just love Caitlin, just love her. Cash that ticket on her minus 136 in her last fight. Incredible bet. Wasn't even close to losing there against Rebus. And I'm going to be throwing another unit and a quarter on her here at I got plus 176. For what it's worth, I'm not even gonna say it, but the line did bounce back up to like 190, 185 at one point. So people are liking Fiorot, but rewatching Fiorot's fight. So I had this image in Fiorot in my mind because she beat the piss out of Jennifer Maia, right? She smashed her on the feet, took her down. I had in my mind and that image. But I rewatch her other fights, man. She is not as good as this market is pricing her to be, and not as good as I once thought off of that Maya fight. If you go back and rewatch the Bueno Silva fight, I mean, what the fuck is Firo doing in that fight? I mean, she throws jab cross hook maybe 50 straight times at one point in that fight. It's just like she has no variation in her strike. So I think that stupid little boxing, that three punch combinations, that's not going to be working on Chook. I think Chook is not going to be really uncomfortable at boxing range. I think honestly, Chook might be the better boxer of the two. Theorod's striking success, I think it's going to come a lot around kicks. It's going to be body kicks, those kicks to the chest, kicks to the tits, and everything like that. Those can be very effective for Theorod. But I think when they're in like boxing range, I think these exchanges are going to be really even. And then, so maybe a slight advantage to Fiorot on the feet because she hits harder. But I mean, it's a very slight advantage, 60-40 maybe. And then grappling. Now, both women could hit takedowns here, but I think the Chookagian's ability to hold the takedowns is much higher than Fiorot because if you watch Chookagian versus Ribas, she gets taken down a few times there, but she does a good job working her way back up to the feet. She has the much better jiu-jitsu of Fiorot. So let's say she gets taken down by Fiorot here. She can just, grab a single leg, work her way back up to the feet. She doesn't have to be worried about any types of chokes or anything from Fiorot because Chookagian can avoid those chokes all day. So if any woman gets taken down here, I just have much better confidence in Chookagian to actually get up from those takedowns and get back to her feet. While Fiorot, we really haven't seen much footage of her on her back, not really since like her pre-UFC fights. And I think that she could potentially get stuck on her back for long periods of time here. Let's not forget, Chookagian can use her top game to win fights like she did against Antonina Shevchenko. Just, made that fight look easy, dominated it with her grappling. And, she has been training her wrestling a lot more seriously lately. Her husband is a wrestling coach, and she's just been, focusing on wrestling a lot for the past 2 or 3 years. And I think it could really show here. So this line plus 175 is pretty fucking nuts, in my opinion. I mean, I think Fiorot minus 130, minus 150, that would be acceptable. But, 205, man, get the fuck out of here. I'm easily betting on Chookagian in this fight. I think she makes it close, and, hopefully she'll pull off the victory.
You said you think that Chookagian is gonna win?
Yes.
Okay, interesting. I mean, this fight, I mean, I don't like Manon Fiorot. I don't like her because, like you said, I pointed out that jab cross hook spamming. Like, I think she needs to grapple Chookagian here to look good, overall. Because Chookagian, like the fact that she is a good she just got her jiu-jitsu black belt, but she'll accept the bottom. I just don't like. I don't think that Fiorot looks great in any of these fights. Like she looks like a good athlete. She looks like actually like Kelvin Gastelum, wise, like her body. She's just like a weird looking girl. But I don't think she's particularly skilled in any real facet of MMA. I don't really think strategically she's even all that good. This is a southpaw versus orthodox matchup, so I'm interested to see how many kicks Chookagian does throw out there and how she needs to just take control of this fight early on. Like you don't let this girl, get off volume on you. On in the in between spaces, like Fiorot is big on throwing strikes, and she's not really been popped in the mouth all that much by girls. And I think that Chookagian with her, clean 1-2s and some of the boxing that she puts out there could give her some trouble here. Um, but like I haven't pulled the trigger yet on Chookagian just because, like I said, she could be a little bit sometimes content with like laying on her back. She did that against Hebos, and I didn't like how she got like head and arm thrown at one point, and that's never a good sign. But man, Chookagian by decision, that shit pays the bills. So I think I have to play a little bit of that. And maybe even a little bit on the money line, just because Fiorot, like she just looks like a bonehead to me. Like I feel like she could get submitted. I feel like she could get rocked with a punch. Like there's been no adversity in this woman's career, for the most part. And I don't really think that she's all that proven to be like a 2-to-1 favorite over a girl like Caitlin Chookagian, who's been around the ringer, has fought a lot of good girls. I think she has a little bit of a reach advantage here as well, or maybe the same reach. I don't know, but it's not like Rowe is like
Duke's
this
got
crazy.
3 inches of reach.
Yeah, she's got 3 inches of reach. She's shown to beat a lot of girls that just if they're letting her in the fight, like Chookagian will find a way to make the fight close. So I'll pick Chookagian. Technical perspective, not a big one that I've invested a lot of time into. I just don't think that Fiorot is a well thought out fighter overall. And I do think Chookagian is. So hopefully she implements her normal game plan with a little bit extra volume early on and builds up a lead. If she has a lead,
Yeah,
I
if you
think
just
that I think Fiorot could put herself in trouble here. So I hope she does that.
And if you just look at Chookagian's career, I mean, literally every fight she's either won, lost a split decision, and then she got finished by Shevchenko. That was dominant. But even the Andrade fight, like she was doing well against Andrade before getting finished. So she's had like 15 fights in the UFC, and all of them except one against Shevchenko has been extremely competitive. So you're getting plus 176 on one of the most competitive and consistent women in the UFC. I think it's a pretty easy bet to make.
She's
And like you
literally
said,
fought. She's fought two glove sniffers in her last two fights. Like Chookagian's just way more quick and agile and smarter on the feet than fucking Jennifer Maya and Mariah Bueno Silva. Like that stuff that she's been doing is not working on Chookagian, in my opinion. I think this girl's gonna get punched up, touched up on the feet. I could be wrong.
like to hear one of the fights in the card next, lightweight division. Beneil Dariush taking on Mateusz-Gamrot. The odds for this one, Gamrot's the favorite, minus 190. Beneil Dariush plus 165. Ozzy, your turn to start this one off.
Of this fight is other than the Sean Brady fight, this is another fight that I really like on the card, and I've been doing a lot of looking into it. And I'm a Gamrot guy. I've been a Gamrot guy through and through. I think I've bet him on literally every one of his fights, especially in his last fight against Armin, but as well against CDF. And the guy's great, with the transitions, right? He's able to get in on the takedowns pretty well. Um, he fights from both stances as well, which is nice to see. Nice to see sometimes. But I think Benil, I think he's gonna come out guns a blazing here. I think that on the feet with the strikes that he puts out there, I don't think Gamrot's really faced a guy that has the kind of boxing and the hands that Benil does. And Benil's just a born fighter, man. This guy, he's really, really well rounded. He originally started with a jiu-jitsu base, and he was one of the best grapplers around. I think he would have probably been ADCC level like Gamrot got to if he had just stayed that path. But his wrestling has really improved as he's gone on and went into his UFC career. And I don't think it's gonna be easy for Gamrot to get takedowns on him. Stay on top of him and score points. That's the thing with when he was taking down Armin, he wasn't really controlling or like landing ground strikes. And I think Armin or Benny is a better grappler than Armin is in terms of just being able like submission grappling overall. So I think he's going to be able to potentially counter Gamrot, stay on the feet, and touch this guy up. With his coming from the southpaw stance. Gamrot, he switches stances a lot. He's not really a comfortable striker in either of the stances. But when this guy's in orthodox stance, in my opinion, his striking just looks very very much subpar. So I'm looking for Benio to put down some power strikes on this guy. Hopefully his cardio could hold up a little bit. He's been scheduled for 5 rounds against Islam earlier in this year. He's been scheduled against Oliveira. I think this guy's the guy. I think his window though is kind of closing a little bit here. So this might be the last chance to kind of get him at a plus money price here against a guy like this. But how I rate these guys, I just can't come in a 3 round fight to where this is at right now. This is like the same price that I bet Gamrot against CDF, and I just have Benil rated way higher. And it's not like I've upgraded Gamrot that much off the Armin win. So I like Benil here. I think I might have a little, maybe close to 2 units on him. I haven't pulled the trigger yet, but I think this is potentially a good fight for him. And I think that he's gonna look good on the feet here against Gamrot.
Yeah, I like Dariush here as well. Yeah, I mean, I think a point to make about this fight is so the Gamrot fight against Sarukian is if that fight ended after 3 rounds, some people would have had it 3-0 Sarukian, and some would have had it 2-1 Sarukian. And really the what changed that fight the fourth and fifth round where Gamrot had way more 5 round experience and he put a pace on Sarukian and he tired him out and he won rounds 4 and 5 to steal that decision. And a similar thing would probably happen here against Dariush. That the rounds 4 and 5 would probably favor Gamrot, and the fight would go his way a lot more favorably over 5 rounds. But this fight is 3 rounds, and I think the market is kind of pricing in that big cardio advantage for Gamrot as if it were a 5 round fight. But it's not. It's 3 rounds, and I mean, I think Beneil Dariush is extremely live to win the fight in a 3 round fight. I would say he's, the 70% favorite to win round one. Gamrot's probably 70% to win round three. It's probably going to be a 29-28 for either guy here. And I just think that you're getting plus 165 on a guy that's probably going to win round one. And all he has to do is win, 2 out of 3 rounds to win this fight here because Gamrot finishing Dariush seems very unlikely to me. A submission for Gamrot seems pretty out of the question. And a knock seems rather unlikely too, as well, because Gamrot just doesn't hit that hard. I think Dariush hits significantly harder. I think Dariush's striking arsenal is a lot more varied. He mixes it up with kicks and knees. I mean, he has got really good knees, actually. He hurt CDF with a knee to the body really badly, and his punches are hard too. He's got a real power behind his left hand. So, Dariush he hits harder to me. He's the more varied striker. I think he's got the much better jujitsu of the two. And I mean, I think the wrestling is really where the fight is probably the most even. Gamrot is really gifted at scrambling and defending takedowns. But with Dariush mixing in the jiu-jitsu and his control grappling, I think he's going to get this fight on the floor and he's going to control Gamrot for short periods of time here. I don't think he's going to, blanket him for the full 5 minutes of a round, but I think he will mix in takedowns. He will get those takedowns and he will get some meaningful control while Gamrot might take down Dariush for, a second or two here, but I just don't see Gamrot keeping him down because Gamrot's top game, his top control has never been that good. he kind of consistently takes guys down and doesn't really have that strong of an idea on how to keep them down and how to maximize his chances with that position. So I think that Dariush is keeping the takedowns here has more upside. And I think Dariush is just going to fight for your money here at plus 165. I think obviously, I think he's going to win the fight. I think it will be 29-28, picking up the first 2 rounds and dropping that last one. And, I would be surprised to see Gamrot cover his price tag here. He might maybe drop round one, pull back rounds 2 and 3, and look like a slight favorite. But man, him looking like a 65% favorite against Benil Dariush, I think that's off. And the reason why the price is like this is Gamrot's more active. He came off that Sarukian win. Dariush hasn't fought in almost a year and a half. His last win was against Tony Ferguson. He looks old. He's got the gray hair, and I think the market is just kind of historically underrated Benil Dariush in most of his fights. He was only like minus 160 to Ferguson in that fight. He was a pick him to CDF, pick him to like Drakkar Close or something like that, maybe. So I just think the market is consistently underrating Dariush, and they're doing it again here. So give me Benny at plus 165. I think that's a solid bet. You're
I've
gonna say,
told these guys multiple times. The guy's not old. All right, he's 30. There's a 2-year age difference here. The guy's never lost a decision. Okay, so like I'm riding the Benny train. Like if Gamrot wins, great. I love him, but telling you that I'm not sure this guy should be a 2-1 favorite over a guy like Benil Dariush. Many should. So
hell no, he shouldn't. And that's going to take us to
like,
the next fight in the bantamweight division. Peter Yan taking on Sean O'Malley. Hilarious fight. Peter Yan minus 265, Sean O'Malley plus 225. I mean, I think Yan is going to destroy this guy. I mean, I think it has potential to be close for a few minutes early on here because Yan does kind of start slow. He starts to, make reads and then he starts to make his move in the fight. But this is a 3-round fight, first 3-round fight for Peter in a while. And I think hopefully he'll up the tempo and the pressure from the jump here and not let his opponents get started like he's been doing in his 5-round fights. But I mean, I just don't see how Sean O'Malley is going to win this fight. I mean, O'Malley's chances of out grappling Yan are zero. There's no chance he can land takedowns or have grappling success. O'Malley's success is going to be strictly limited to the feet here. And, O'Malley can't check leg kicks. That's, a big problem of his that can't seem to get over. I think Yan can take O'Malley down if he wants to. I think Yan hits harder of the two. I mean, yeah, O'Malley's for him to win, he's gonna have to stick and move and use his length and use his volume to outstrike Peter Yan for 2 out of 3 rounds. And I just think that's just not possible. So I think Yan is gonna win. I think he's probably gonna cover minus 250. If it keeps coming in, I will be forced to bet Peter Yan's money line. I mean, anything under 250, anything under 70%, I think is golden. I mean, I really cap him closer to 77% here. So I think Jan's going to destroy this guy. I don't know if he'll finish him. He doesn't really have the greatest finishing
that's what I was gonna
ability.
ask you.
So I think it'll be decision for Jan.
Fascinating fight. I really did not see a fight like this, manifesting, a guy that they obviously love in O'Malley, but I guess they're feeling like if he loses, no hair off their back. Um, I'm really intrigued in this one just because I'm intrigued with like the style or like the approach that O'Malley's gonna have here. What I do like about O'Malley is the guy's got really quick hands and he kind of some of these short hooks that he throws, like from the opposite stance, from like the lefty stance, and how he kind of shifts sometimes looks good. But the issue for him here is that I don't think Jan is going to accept a back foot all too much. And when he does throw, like the guy's just really good at keeping the pressure on you, hitting you from multiple different angles. He'll dive into the clinch, at different points and opportunities as well. And he does look to wrap up and use his grappling, pretty well here, there as well. O'Malley's been improving though. He's been training with Taquinho, former ADCC, champion. He's been getting training with, a lot of the guys in that Arizona scene who are really, really good. But I don't think offensively he's going to have a lot to offer for Jan. And I just feel Jan like similar to you. He's just gonna be able to be thumping this guy a lot harder than he has been, hit at any point in his career. Like the guy was, getting hit by a little bit by Chris Moutinho when he sold. It just Jan's got that 5-round pace and cardio, and he's got he puts on damage on guys. So I think O'Malley's in a struggle here, even if he does have success early, which I think is still far fetched. I think that Yan is just gonna be able to beat him up later in the fight. So I was actually thinking about playing the over, but now that I'm thinking about it more, I'm gonna avoid that a little bit. And I'm looking at that minus 250, at FanDuel, and I think that's super appetizing to me. I mean, I think this money's gonna keep coming in, but I gotta play. I'm gonna have to have something on Peter Yan here because the guy's just so good, so well rounded, and so intelligent in there. I think he knows he's not underestimating Sean O'Malley. That's the thing. O'Malley's, coming. He's not gonna catch Peter Yan off guard at any point here. So, I'm looking forward to this fight. I think that Yan's gonna be able to land on O'Malley as the fight goes on, chop those legs up, and potentially put him on the ground.
All right, that's going to take us into the title fights, two title fights, bantamweight division, lightweight division. First fight is the champion Aljamain Sterling taking on former champion TJ Dillashaw. The odds for this one: Aljamain Sterling minus 175, TJ Dillashaw plus 150. Ozzy, your turn to start this one off on the first title fight.
Sweet fight. I love this fight. I mean, TJ, I've always really liked and enjoyed TJ Dillashaw's fights and his fighting style and, how he came on overall, if kind of like how he approached, a lot of these fights and, how well-rounded he is. But I think he's lost a step. I think that knee surgery he's coming off of is a major one. And the fact of the matter is, like, I think the style that Aljamain Sterling brings is one that is an issue for a guy like TJ. TJ kind of struggles sometimes in the striking when you're not really exchanging with him. Like, people talk about a lot of the times like his knockouts, but like it's not hard to knock out Cody Garbrandt as we've seen. And the only reason I mention that is because some of the strikes that he throws, like you see against Corey Sandhagen, you see against like Dominic Cruz, he has a hard time with guys that are not setting their feet and landing some of these punches. He's swinging and missing a lot. He's throwing out a lot of kicks that sometimes are a little bit telegraphed. And I think that he had to go to those leg kicks and that just clinch grappling game against Corey, to end up winning that fight. And I feel like Aljamain, he's been discredited for having to fight 25 minutes or 50 minutes, excuse me, against the best guy in the division. Did he slow down in that second and first fight? Yeah, but the first fight, crazy pace, crazy, approach that he had in there. He was landing tons of strikes, and he's just like volume based. I think he's gonna be able to touch TJ with a lot of these straight shots. I think he's gonna be able to avoid a lot of the counter punches that TJ does throw. And when TJ does wind up on some of these punches, I think Aljamain is going to be able to get him in the clinch, wrap him up with, similar to like how he did that Corey Sandhagen fight, right? Corey overextends on like one punch, and Aljamain wraps him up with his arms, gets behind him. He takes down Peter Yan, wraps him up with those legs, and he's immediately in a mounted position and throwing down, big strikes on him. And TJ, I feel he's just a meathead alpha male guy, right? He's talking about, oh, D1 wrestling and all that stuff. Like, where did Dominic Cruz wrestle? You didn't wrestle D1. I don't even think he wrestled junior college, and he took TJ down multiple times. And a lot of times when TJ is looking to get away, he's giving up his back. And I just, I respect TJ's grappling though. Like, I think the biggest point where I think Aljamain could err is if he does fatigue a little bit and does allow TJ to take him down potentially. He did go to his back a few times against Peter Yan, but even then, he did throw up some submissions there. And I think this guy's super tricky. I think TJ is underestimating him because TJ thinks that he's super dangerous and all those things like that. But Aljo's not gonna play that game with him. And I think that TJ is going to be throwing leg kicks and stuff like that. And I think all those things are going to lead to him getting taken down, him getting put in really bad positions. And I'm going to put a little bit on that Aljamain by submission here. So I got Aljamain at the minus 160, 162 number. I just favor him overall here. I think that his cardio is a little bit better than people give it credit for. He pieced up Pedro Munoz. He pieced up Jimmy Rivera. And the fact of the matter is, there's been nobody who's been able to shut down Aljamain Sterling on the feet or on the ground in his UFC career or in his career at all. Nobody's looked good against this guy, and everyone's always underestimated him. I think that's going to maintain here. I think that him coming back from this neck surgery as well, he's had 6 or 7 months since that last Peter Yan fight to kind of improve and build on to here. And I think we're going to hear and still after at the end of the night or end of the afternoon on Saturday. And I think Aljamain will win this fight, whether it be submission, decision, whatever it may be. But I think he's keeping the belt.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fight is a bit more competitive than Ozzy does, but I do sort of agree with Sterling's price just because the way I'm seeing the fight is TJ or Aljo's ability to win a round with one move, that back take is very significant here. He can hit a takedown and he can get a back take. He's probably going to keep that back take for 3 to 5 minutes, however long he needs to keep that, and that's going to be a round winner right off the back. Um, so that's a huge thing that's going into this pricing here is that I think this fight will probably hit the scorecards. Will probably go the full 5 rounds. Like I was saying, the Sterling sub probably is the most likely way the fight finishes. But I inevitably think it will go the full 5 rounds, and that round winning ability from Sterling to hit that back take and just kind of secure that round is huge. While TJ Dillashaw is going to have to stuff takedowns, he's going to have to win the striking. He's going to have to do that for 5 minutes a round just to win the round. So it's going to be a lot more difficult for TJ to bank these rounds, and that's why you're seeing the price of Sterling is what it is. And I kind of agree with the pre-fight pricing. I want to see how TJ looks early on here. Um, I think he possibly could win round one because I don't think Sterling is going to come out shooting from the jump. I think he's going to try to fill him out on the feet a little bit. And one thing I'm thinking about this fight though is that Ozzy mentioned that Sterling, is piecing up Munoz and Rivera on the feet. His striking looks really good in those fights. And then in the Yan fight, we didn't. Well, the first Yan fight we saw a little bit of striking from Aljo. The second fight we really didn't see much striking at all. And I thought it was a mistake from Aljo. I mean, I think he's at his best when he's blending in those strikes together, when he's using his length, those kicks, those straight punches of his, and then he shoots that takedown behind those strikes. And I think we're going to see a little bit more of that from Aljo here. He's going to go back to the striking and start throwing some strikes, confusing TJ, and then using those strikes to disguise that takedown and eventually get that takedown. But against Yan, I think he was maybe a little bit spooked by the striking of Yan, and he didn't want to initiate the striking. But rewatching even the second Yan fight, I just think that Aljo, his takedown attempts were a bit, desperate enough. Those fights, he was shooting from a long distance away, and luckily for him, he's gifted at chain wrestling, and he's gonna once he gets in on you, it doesn't matter if you denied that first entry, he's gonna chain multiple attempts together, and he will eventually get you down. And that's what happened against Yan. Yan was stuffing a few shots, he was stuffing them, and then just one time he made a little mistake. He missed a wizard, and then all of a sudden Aljo ducks around to that back. He gets the back take, and he round two, round three with those back takes. I will say though, Sterling, I think his cardio does have to be a legitimate concern because in the Yan fight, the second Yan fight, the fight went almost as good as it could have in the first 1, 2, 3 rounds. He banked the second and third easily with those back takes, and even round one he stole that one on 2 out of 3 judges scorecards. And in round 4 and 5, you did see him, feeling the pace. His cardio didn't look as good. It probably had something to do with having that body lock for so long. He had that body lock for maybe 7 or 8 minutes in round 2 and 3, and his legs are probably feeling a little bit like jello in those fourth and fifth rounds. He really needs to start working on that cardio because to be a consistent champion, uh, I guess it's more of a pacing issue than it is a cardio issue. I don't think he's a gasser necessarily. I think he just needs to get that 5 round experience to get himself used to spacing out that cardio over the full 5 rounds. But I'm honestly rooting for TJ to win the fight. I'm a big fan of TJ's career overall. I think he's a tremendous fighter. I'm a big fan of PEDs and steroids as well. So I don't like people kind of using TJ as the scapegoat and talking a bunch of shit on him using steroids while everybody's on steroids. He was just unfortunately the one who got caught. So I hope TJ can pull off the upset. I think it would be kind of a cool story for him to come back off that long layoff and get that belt so far down the road. And I think people have kind of written him off in title fights before. Obviously the fucking Barao fight, the Cody Garbrandt fights. I think he should have won the Dominic Cruz decision back in the day. So I hope TJ pulls it off. I don't think he actually will. And it's probably going to be, a 49-46 decision for Sterling here. Maybe he gets 3 rounds instead of four, but I think Aljo by decision is probably going to be the outcome here. But I hope to be wrong, and that's going to take us to the main event, lightweight division, vacant lightweight championship technically because Oliveira somehow lost his belt on the scale against Gaethje. That's all semantics, though. Charles Oliveira is the lightweight champion, taking on Islam Makhachev. Odds for this one: Islam, the favorite, -193. Charles Oliveira +168. So I've picked against Charles Oliveira wrong in literally his past 4 fights. I picked Lee, Ferguson, Poirier, and Gaethje. Just terrible, terrible. Um, and I'm done picking against him. I'm done betting against him. I'm done rooting against him. There's no way I can do it because early on, a month ago, 2 months ago, I was thinking about the fight. I'm thinking, Islam should top game him, based on the Kevin Lee fight. Don't really love what I saw from Oliveira there. He did get put on his back by Lee. Um, did spend, 5, 7 minutes on his back in the first 2 rounds of that fight. Not a good recipe for fighting Islam Makhachev. And what I'm thinking about Oliveira's his defensive grappling. The way I'm describing it is it's very reactive. It's not extremely proactive. And you know, what I was thinking in a guy like Justin Gaethje against Khabib, I was thinking Gaethje has reactive takedown defense. He's not going to let you get close to him. He's got good distance management. He's going to kick the legs. He's going to use his punches. He's going to use those weapons to keep Khabib off of getting a takedown. But Oliveira's takedown defense seems to be more reactive, where he'll let you initially take him down, and then he'll be like, "How can I sweep? How can I submit?" He'll attack an omoplata or an armbar, a triangle, or hit a butterfly sweep, and he's extremely gifted off of his back with those submissions and sweeps, and he's going to be very pesky to deal with. But I do think that Islam will get him down without much difficulty. I think that Islam's going to put him on his back. It just becomes a matter of will Oliveira's sweeps and subs work against a guy with the top game of Islam? And I mean, I think that's a really good question. We haven't seen a guy who's really fight off their back again. These guys kind of just suffocate under the pressure, and I don't think that Oliveira is going to do that. I think Oliveira will be more comfortable on bottom than pretty much any opponent Islam has ever fought. So that's going to be interesting. And the striking here, I mean, it's going to be pretty one-sided for Charles Oliveira, in my opinion. I mean, the guy's striking is just getting consistently better. It's much better than Islam's. I mean, his boxing has gotten really good. His kicks up the middle, his teeps are good, and his clinch work is absolutely fucking nasty. I mean, he beat up Gaethje in the clinch. He beat up Poirier in the clinch a little bit in their fight as well. And I think like this fight, if Islam shoots a takedown and Oliveira initially stuffs it, I mean, Islam is going to be eating knees in the clinch. He's going to be eating elbows, and it's going to be difficult for Islam to get some of his traditional takedowns. Where Islam, he'll drive you to the cage, he'll get your back against the cage, and then he'll dive in on your legs and try to get you down. I think that's going to be difficult because Charles is very comfortable in the clinch against the cage. Islam should be trying at time his takedowns in the center of the cage where he has a lot of room in the cage to get Oliveira down. And logic tells me that Islam, -190 is about accurate, and that he should win the fight. But like I said, I'm done picking against Oliveira. I'm done doubting the guy, and I'm having to will myself into picking Charles Oliveira to win the fight. Won't be betting on it. I think people betting on this fight with confidence are a little foolish, in my opinion. I mean, you got two elite level fighters. You got both guys who are kind of bad matchups for one another. Both guys who this is, a really tough opponent for one another. And, being confident in either one of these guys and laying multiple units on this fight, just not a smart recipe, in my opinion. The fight that the line I see with the most value is probably for this fight to start round 3. I don't think these guys are going to finish each other easily. I think if it's an early finish, it will be very likely a Charles finish. I don't think Islam is finishing Oliveira easily. I think starts round 3 at even. That's pretty good. I don't think this ending in rounds 1 or 2 at 50%. So starts round 3 is not a bad bet there. But just amazing matchup. Cannot wait for this fight, and I'm interested to see what Ozzy is thinking here.
Ooh wee, is this a fucking title fight? Um, Man, I've been looking forward to this one. I've just been wanting to see Islam like just really prove it to me, like show me like this is the guy because I feel a lot of the stuff is propped up a little bit or a lot of bit by that pedigree of Khabib's. And I was on the spaces yesterday and I was kind of like discussing this fight a bit. And just the biggest difference that I see with the Islam side is like even when he does get these takedowns, man, like his ground and pound, like it's not like Khabib. Like you've seen Khabib against Michael Johnson, Edson Barboza, Conor McGregor, multiple fights. He puts it on guys on top, elbows, punches, just grinding them down and connecting with big strikes. And Islam, he's more of a control guy. Like he's looking to sit on you in half guard. He's got these gorilla shoulders and he's, really wants to lock you down in half guard, put shoulder pressure on you and just hold you down there. And that's like the issue when I'm thinking about this fight. Like, yeah, is Islam likely going to get some takedowns on Oliveira? Yeah, but like, where's the threats if he's not getting the guard passes? Like, is he just gonna sit there and get punched and elbowed and have Oliveira trying to submit him from on bottom? Like where is like the danger he's gonna be posing that's really worries for Charles? And I think that's why Charles is coming in here super confident because he's like, hey man, this is gonna be hard for this guy to take me down. When it's on the feet, I'm gonna be looking to butcher him, and then when it's on the ground, I don't think he's getting submitted by Islam unless there's really a big fatigue factor. So, early on, I was like looking at the Islam side. I'm like, yeah, like this is definitely like I'm definitely gonna be taking Islam. But now I'm definitely not on the Islam side. I just can't bet a guy where I think he's just not as dangerous here, and he's gonna have like some really good, you know, events happening for him to get these dominant positions if Oliveira is on his game. And I've just seen an evolution from Charles Oliveira. I've gone 2-2, fortunately for me, on Oliveira's few fights. I had Chandler against him, I had Gaethje, but I also had him big against Poirier, and he just is different on the feet, man. This guy's blood hungry, bloodthirsty on the feet. He's looking to land crazy amount of strikes in all ways, right? He's butchered southpaws, which Islam is, right? But like the transitions, how he goes from the clinch striking, like you mentioned, to okay, you pull out of that and then he's landing these big shots on you like he did against Gaethje, these front kicks, flying knees that he's throwing, elbows that he's throwing in the clinch. Like he's just looking to put damage on the out on guys. And there's literally not been anyone that Islam has like significantly damaged in a UFC fight. Like I just don't like seeing that, the fact that the guy's not been through that much adversity overall. And when that Oliveira tidal wave gets going, it's hard to stop. So Islam better have no, bad moments in this fight, because if he does, you just don't know. Like if he's in a panicked, state, like what is he gonna do? If he gets rocked with punches, does he dive in for a takedown? Does he exchange with Oliveira? Like what does he do? You don't know. So what killed the cat, Martian? Overconfidence killed the cat. And you telling me that you got 10 units on Islam, I just don't think is right. I don't think they're that big a margin for a guy like this over such a dangerous grappler, not or fighter in Charles Oliveira. I love Islam's grappling. I love Khabib's grappling. It's something that I've tried to implement in my own grappling, but it is big on having an advantage on a guy and then keeping those transitions going where you're beating them to the next position. And the thing with a guy like Oliveira and guys like him that I've grappled, like they're pretty good at keeping, opportunities small for you to capitalize on them. And he's been better with his offensive grappling as well, of late, like with against Dustin Poirier, against Michael Chandler, right? That double leg that he shoots on him. And then he's been looking good in these later rounds. What happened in that second round after that first round against Chandler? He comes out across that cage and he's foot on the gas, like he's ready on the trigger. As soon as Michael Chandler throws a shot, boom, left hook, rocks him. That third round, he comes out against Poirier. Immediately, Poirier throws a big strike, slips it, wraps him up in the clinch, jumps on his back, finishes him. The guy's just crazy opportunistic, has looked better in these later rounds. So I'm going to pick him as well to win this fight. I'm gonna end up, I'm hoping that this just keeps ballooning up because people are super confident on the Islam side. I get it. He's been grinding these guys out. But dude, this guy got taken down by Thiago Moises. Like Thiago Moises, like they were reversing each other in these clinch positions. They got this big cage here. Like, is Islam gonna be able to stay glued to Charles on the fence? Like, do people think these are auto takedowns? Like, he's just gonna, kick his foot, sweep his foot, and he's gonna fall down every time they lock up. This is the thing that I'm not really seeing with these guys. The Dan Hooker takedown. It's like he's diving on his legs from way out, and Hooker is bottom half guard, and he's not able to do anything. So I think the people I think he's gonna cut through Charles Oliveira are nuts. I don't think he's gonna be able to stay glued to him as much as people think. And I think it's gonna be and still there. The champion has a name. It's Charles Oliveira, and I think at the end of the night, you got two and stills. They're gonna say and new, but I think TJ Dillish or I think Aljamain Sterling is gonna keep his belt, and I think they're gonna wrap that belt around Charles Oliveira as well. And hopefully it's gonna be. My dream is that it's a quick fight. He knocks this dude out quick, and they do Benil versus Charles in Brazil. That would be fucking sick.
That would be.
That's what I'm
I
looking
I,
for.
I agree. What
Let Volk
what do you think
let Volk fight another guy. You
about
know.
the like going into the rounds? What I said about starts round three. You think Charles finishes him early, or do you think it will go late?
Man, it's volatile. I think that that's the issue. If it's going later and Islam, is able to neutralize some of the offense, like that's gonna be the issue. Like if Charles is a little tired and Islam is on top, like this guy's a shaved silverback gorilla. Like he's crazy strong. So I could see him getting these submissions. He's much more. That's the thing. In opposite of Khabib, he's much more willing to go for these submissions. Like some of his armbar transitions are really nice. So I think that would be if it's later on. I think Islam is probably gonna win. If it's
Hmm.
going later on. But the dude Oliveira, man, his condition. These you saw last week where we lost on fucking Castaneda against this Santos guy. These guys, I don't know what they're doing with their conditioning, but it's different. They're looking good in these later rounds. Usually, these Brazilians, you've been thinking like they're like Yuri Alcantara kind of motherfuckers. Like they start folding, you start hitting them a little bit. But that's the issue, dude. Islam does not put damage. So, like, how worried is Oliveira about getting hurt and beat up in there? That saps your cardio, right? What do they say? Oh, you punch a black belt, he's a brown belt. Islam doesn't do that, dude. So I'm willing to be surprised and wrong, but I just in that sport of MMA, man, you gotta be putting damage on guys. So we'll see. Islam sounds confident. He thinks he's gonna just grind them out. I don't think so though.
All right, that's gonna do it for this card. We talked for a good amount of time, but that's what happens when these fights are good, man. When it's a shitty fight night, we'll do a 50-minute, hour-long podcast. When it's a great pay-per-view with six main event worthy fights, we're gonna go an hour and a half because we got lots to talk about. Even some of the fights that aren't, main event worthy. Ohio Muradov, Krylov Oezdemir, Almeida Tukhugov, Nurmagomedov-Omar. They're good fights. Mokaev on the prelims. This card is fucking amazing, and I cannot wait for Saturday morning. First, that's going to take our best bet parlay of the week. I have one in mind for me, Ozzy.
Go first. Go first.
Okay, I'm going to do Sean Brady minus 130.
Brady.
I feel like I might have stolen that one a little bit from you, but I
Okay.
feel like you have a different one that I know which one you're going to choose.
That's okay. That's okay. So I mean, the two money lines that I like when I'm looking at this, I like the Krylov side and I like Benil Dariush. But I know Benil Dariush, a lot of people don't like him. One other thing I wanted to add because you rushed me a little bit on that one is bulletin board material. All right. It's not only the case in professional like ball sports, but Benil's there. They're taking his backup, this title shot, all this kind of stuff. This guy Gamrot's coming off a 5-round main event. He was Benil's supposed to fight both the title guys, like bulletin board material. This is burn the boats, all in Benil Dariush. But I'm gonna go with a pick, a favorite actually that I like a little bit better. So I'm gonna go with Nikita Krylov on the money line. I think that he's just
Say it again. It cut off a little bit. What money
Nikita
line? Okay.
Nikita Krylov on the money line. I think he's gonna be Volkan minus 175 or whatever it is. I think he's gonna win that fight. But I really said all the sides that I like this week, but I'll go with that as my best bet.
This is true. That comes out Brady minus 130, Krylov minus 175 on Bet Online comes out to plus 178 there. Yeah, but Benny is good. We'll be betting Benny, but not like a best bet because, I guess there is potential for him to lose while Krylov, I think, has way more potential to actually cover and look rather easily. So plus 178, that's going to be our best bet parlay of the week. And that'll do it for this podcast. Any closing thoughts here, Ozzy?
I love this card. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm firing. I'm firing away. A lot of these matchups, I'm gonna have some good cash on a lot of these
How do
fights.
you think what's your prediction for the Yankees Astros series? Who's winning and how many games?
Yanks in six, bro. Yanks in six.
I like it. Phillies Yankees World Series is on the horizon. Um,
I'm
and
looking
that'll
forward
do it.
to
So
the last Yankees parade when we won in whatever, I forget when, '07, I
oh
think.
nine,
I
oh
oh
nine.
nine there, yeah, '09. I cut school to go to it. I don't gotta cut school no more, so I'm looking forward to another parade though.
All right, and hope everyone enjoys the fights this weekend. Thank you all for listening. Make sure you're subscribing and following us on Twitter, and we'll see you all before the next UFC event next week. Peace out, everybody.